My name is Brent Feldman, and welcome to another episode of Mix and Matchbox. Today, I am joined by Jill Gaynor. She is the Director of Marketing at the AAO and a board member of 314 Digital. How are you doing, Jill?
Hi, Brent. Thanks so much for having me. I am doing great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate it. Looking forward to jumping right into all the questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess in the kind of to start us off here, how'd you get into marketing, and really what led you to kind of like start your business?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I went to UMSL to study English, and I believe that I was going to teach The Great Gatsby and read Yeats to high school students, and I was going to be the next great American novelist. Then I realized I would never make any money being a teacher. After college, I started as a receptionist at an advertising agency, a little teeny tiny ad agency in St. Louis. And I learned how to buy media by hand. So, like for some younger people who are so used to having computers do everything for them, it shoots out what the reach and frequency and everything is. I was actually with a Nielsen book and a ruler and a highlighter and a calculator and, figuring out kind of how to buy it by hand. But in all honesty, there were only 3 TV stations at the time, 20 radio stations, some billboards, and some magazines and newspapers. So it was a lot easier than the landscape that we have today. So over the course of my career, though, I felt it'd be more valuable, and this is something that I would tell anybody who's starting off, to not just be a one-trick pony. I wanted to offer something of value to employers and have more personal satisfaction about learning about marketing, start to finish. So understanding the why behind, why am I putting this commercial here? Or why am I doing that? And so I worked in sales. So I worked in media sales. I worked as a client-side marketer. I worked at advertising agencies. I've worked in brand management also, so learning how to bring a product to life from concept to commercialization. So I've kind of done it all. So that's kind of how I got into marketing, because I realized I like to think of myself as being a little forward thinking and realizing if you're just doing the same thing over and over and you don't push yourself to grow, you're never going to get better at what you're doing. So that's how I got into it.
That is really cool. Well, and you kind of preaching like the kind of the nice thing about having the diversity in skill sets, the learning different things, trying to, figure out your way is like totally has been one of the things I've really appreciated about, my path too.
Mhm.
All the skills you pick up, you never know what you might want to dig into even more. And I definitely, I feel like the amount of creative opportunities at agencies and kind of in the digital realm and the traditional realm on ad side is just like there's so many, there's just so many
It
cool
is.
things that you could be doing. So I guess, definitely being a part of 314 Digital, that is definitely cool. And, I myself is certainly, consider myself part of the digital realm, but
Yep.
I know that you do a lot to help bridge the gap between kind of digital and traditional and demystify those kind of things for people. So what would you say are maybe some of the misconceptions about, the difficulty of engaging in like, TV and radio, that you could help, kind of dispel those myths?
Sure. So going back to what I just said about learning to buy media by hand when there's so few choices, back in the day, TV shows would get these huge ratings every week. So, for example, in 1983, that is before I started doing this, but Dallas, the show Dallas Who Shot JR, it was getting a 25 rating. That's huge. Primetime shows now, TV shows are lucky to get a 2 or a 3 right now. I mean, it's crazy. And that's because of all the fragmentation and all the choices. And especially if you're a new digital marketer and you're, in your early 20s, this is all you've ever known, and you're not used to understanding, how things work together. But deeply media savvy people know that there's still a lot of life left in traditional media channels. Procter Gamble, I believe, a few years ago, really cut back significantly on their digital media because they realized that they were missing the mass audience that they were get because there's so many choices on digital to pick from. And so they started to pull back a little bit and focus more on some of the traditional media channels. I know a couple of facts I can share with you. 88% of people 18 plus are reached by local radio every week, and they
Wow.
listen to over 11 hours of radio. So, regardless of all the choices that you have, there's really nothing that can reach the reach of broadcast. So, the old saying that man can't live on bread alone. Well, I believe that, because when you surround people with messaging, they're like helper media. So they help each other work better because of all that fragmentation. So, my long answer to your short question was, there's so many opportunities with the traditional channels with their digital counterparts. A lot of the TV and radio stations have got a digital aspect to them. So you've heard of second screen watching. So you'll be watching a show, you want to look something up, so you grab your phone or your tablet and you can, look it up right then. There's some interactive commercials where you can actually, in the middle of watching a Jeep commercial, click on it and go right to their website and build your own Jeep, things like that. So I think there's a lot of opportunity, and the traditional media channels are learning to grow and evolve to help bridge that gap.
Cool. I couldn't agree more on the side of like, maybe loading up the digital budget, almost too much. People
Hmm.
throwing more and more into digital ads, and definitely down, kind of like the CPC route. And I mean, like, certainly, it can be a well supported channel, and you can obviously do great things with like, Google and putting out, great ads on digital channels. But, we've seen that spend increase. Maybe, not all the time do you see the ROI increase. And I think there's also an adage of like, the number of touches that it takes to actually reach a person. So
Yep.
absolutely, you speaking right to that is like, surrounding somebody with your branding, your messaging. I mean, really, unless you're reaching them at multiple different points, you may not be communicating with your audience wherever they are. So I definitely, that is nice to be able to still have those opportunities, and certainly to still reach that kind of vast of an audience.
Right. And so many people don't have like a huge giant budget. So you have to be really smart with your choices, right? So you want to surround people with this stuff, but you also don't want to spread your marketing dollars too thin. Just because oh, I love YouTube and we should be on Hulu and we should do this and do that. Sometimes you need to rein people's expectations back and focus your efforts on where your target audience really is. So just because you can do something doesn't mean you necessarily should. And I think that's one of the things that a good media and marketing person will help manage that expectation for clients on, the best way to reach their target, because there's so many research tools that can help you identify. There's so many, first party data that you can marry with third party data to really reach your target. And so, being really mindful of using those tools to keep your marketing plan where it needs to be, as opposed to just spreading it out like, spray and pray kind of thing. So,
Definitely. That's great. Well, the next question I have for you is kind of something that I'm actually really personally curious about. It's something that as I am a subscriber to YouTube TV, and
mhm.
I've been a cord cutter, quote unquote, or for a while, but now that I am subscribed to a billion different other things, and they're all disparate and have their own sort of way of operating. I don't know if I'm really saving anything at the end of the day. But anyway, regardless of all that, I am a subscriber, and I've certainly see the gaps in those broadcasts where there's no commercial. It'll say we'll be right back. So it seems like obviously there's a lot of opportunity for those like kind of services to be showing more ads, and maybe even pretty cost effectively. But is there anything that you can speak to about services like that, and how you put your brand, on those kind of services?
Sure. So really quickly though, just because I don't know like about your listeners and how savvy they are, just want to talk about OTT versus VOD versus CTV, because a lot of people use those terms interchangeably. They're easily confused and they all sound very similar. So OTT, just for everybody, is related to how the content is delivered, which is over the internet, stands for over the top. And that's the video content that's served to viewers in places like Hulu and Sling and Tubi. And then VOD, video demand, is video on demand, is related to how the content is accessed by consumers, that. And then finally, CTV is the device that viewers use to access the content. So like Xbox or PlayStation, Roku, that kind of stuff. So just wanted to kind of level set that, because a lot of people use those terms interchangeably.
That was the best description I think I've gotten of them in one place. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So, again, I'm a fact-based marketer. About 80% of homes have at least one smart TV, which is, kind of cool. We have two in our house, and connected TV is used about half of the population. So like right now I'm sitting here, I've got my TV on in my office and I'm watching this channel called Excite, and it's all 80s music videos. Like there's probably 3 other people that are watching it right now, but there are commercials running on this, but it's 80s music and it's something I like that I can't get anywhere else. So one of the other kind of fun facts about all this is that the biggest growth in these platforms, especially during the pandemic, is from older users. 35% of over 65 have a connected TV. It's up 7%. And users between 50 and 65 grew even more strongly, up to 9%, reached to 49%. So that's that's my age group. So we're adopting technology. I'm not at the end of that age group, but in the early 50s. But in any event, OTT advertisements can broadcast these unique messages to individual users based on the data that they're generating using these streaming services. So they have information about you. So when I'm watching my 80s music videos, these really are spots that are, coming to me that mean something to me in my life stage right now. So it's, kind of cool. Streaming services do offer contracts to advertisers, and they can choose where to place advertisements in a programmatic way. And I think, my best advice is for people who want to get involved in that is to use a trusted partner who has the relationships with these managed services and who can make a really strong recommendation on the networks to use, what the frequency should be. So there's a lot of ways to get your spots on TV, but I like using a trusted partner for that.
Cool. That sounds good. And are you down with OTT? Yeah,
you know me.
Sorry.
God.
I couldn't help it. I'm sorry.
Neither could I.
Okay, well, that's really good to know, because I feel like that's like something that's almost under leveraged, and obviously is like it continues to gain more, traction. More people are obviously cord cutting, every day. I feel like, obviously more and more spots, but yeah, using a trusted partner to help, kind of put your brand in those places and leverage that data in order to like get it to the right people is cool. And yeah, and I definitely, I feel like there's even a lot of opportunity for people we work with to potentially use that too. As we talked about multiple touches being really important for, obviously utilizing, these kind of traditional, media resources and stuff, other than multiple touch points, why do you think it's, very important that, people keep traditional as a part of the marketing mix and plan?
Sure. Well, I firmly believe that traditional media is not dead in 2022. I don't think it's, going away at all. And I know that you said other than multiple touch points, but honestly, a well thought out marketing strategy really should have some form of traditional advertising alongside these digital platforms that you choose to advertise on. I really do. So you may think that leaving traditional mediums out of your media plan is best, but I really don't think that's the case. So the traditional channels remain really important, especially to target an older demographic. And sadly to say, I am an older demographic. They still see traditional media as one of the most reliable sources of online news and media outlets. Local radio personalities, there's something to be said for being able to have, somebody that you've grown up listening to talk about a product and give a personal endorsement. I've used that personal endorsements on radio a lot, and they're hugely successful, especially on more on really niche type radio stations like a conservative talk, for example. I mean, I can't even tell you how well endorsements work in an area like that. So, all in all, I think that the best way to reach consumers, especially, people who've got the money, an older 45 plus demographic, is to use the traditional in conjunction with the other digital media platforms.
Great. Yeah. So just make it part of the mix, and that way you'll get kind of more bandwidth out of everything.
Absolutely. It really helps extend your reach there.
That's cool. Okay. And as I certainly know people will always tout like the ability for digital to be tracked. And that is, oh, well, this is why we go there because, I know that I can attribute, this conversion to this, person who went to the site the first time, the second time, and then they came back and made a purchase. And digital is just, kind of wonderful for that. But how do you think the traditional platforms have kind of adapted or made itself how has tracking kind of evolved as well on the traditional side?
Sure. So, in full transparency, I worked for a radio, or I should say, a media company, which was really at the forefront of tracking and attribution for traditional radio, like terrestrial radio. And they had done a lot of work with analytics. So installing tracking on people's Google Analytics and then matching up the radio spots and showing the amount of web traffic that went up after each radio spot aired. So, I think, the traditional media understand that they need to be able to show how their programs are working as well. And I really applauded them for doing that. And as a former buyer, I was at the time I was selling, but as a former buyer, I said, boy, this is really cool. And I think a lot of people would love to be able to see the results. But that said, there's so many ways to slice and dice data. I mean, you can come up with every, possible statistic, kind of like a baseball game, on Sundays at 1, this guy, hits, 300, I mean, it's kind of crazy. It's great to have it to make informed decisions and learn more about customers. But, you've heard the old saying, first do no evil. Well, it's true. It's great to have these ads target things I'm interested in. But here's a real world example I'll give you. So I was shopping for a baby present for a baby shower. I'm in my 50s, so I'm not the target by any stretch of the imagination. And not only did I start getting retargeted for baby stuff all the time, then I started getting emails with subject lines like, you're expecting, or, based on our calculations, your due date is, I'm like, wait just a second. So I think just because you can measure something doesn't mean that you necessarily have to. But I'm just really of the mindset that it's important to get the data and make informed decisions. But if you make every decision on a click, trying to adjust a click-through rate by a 0.1%, are you really making the most use out of your money and your time? So
Yeah.
use it to do good.
Definitely. Yeah. It can certainly wind you down a rabbit hole to where, sometimes you get blinded by the data or that data is, not necessarily always the full picture. So I certainly, I understand, like as, we look at data all the time and, we're certainly, trying to understand what people are doing on websites. They may be doing that because of what you have put in place in front of them as opposed to
Yep.
what you kind of want them to do. So like, yeah, some of the understanding doesn't have to just come from the story that's being told through that data. And I definitely, I like the idea of kind of like looking at the bigger picture and not getting too lost in that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important to have it. Some of my experience sometime is that it's sometimes people are just checking the box, like, yes, I've got my reporting for this month, and they put it in a file folder and, and never look at it again. And so I want to make sure that when brands in particular are asking for reporting, that they're really looking at it and trying to understand it from a brand perspective, that they're using it to inform their creative, to learn more about their consumers and what they're, doing with it. So
I guess I'll put out there, from our standpoint, we're always advocating that in traditional media, people consistently use like short links, hey, if there is a link that, you
true.
want people to go to your website, you can always do that. That can always help. As we saw famously in the Super Bowl, I think it was Coinbase or something that had used a QR code on their ad and then their
Yep.
website crashed. So that was hilarious. And there's ways to use tracking that method. But I also will say that we worked with a bariatric facility here that had been running TV, and literally what you said is like, every single time you can look at the analytics, the lift was just crazy when they'd start running the TV ad, and
Yep.
it made a big impact, and certainly gained a lot of brand visibility as well as actual like leads and people coming to them. I do want to talk about your kind of role at 314 Digital, because it is really cool. And obviously I feel like, St. Louis needs something like this. So I would love for you to, maybe explain more about, what the organization does and kind of your role in the organization too.
Well, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about it. 314 Digital is something that is near and dear to my heart. It is an organization that's dedicated to creating events that foster education and career development in the digital marketing space. So we're a 100% volunteer board, and I serve as the VP of Education and also as the panel moderator. So we provide 3 educational panels per year, and then a fabulous party at the end of the year, which is under the guise of agencies showcasing their work. But we have a great time where we all kind of come together and celebrate all the wonderful accomplishments from all the agencies who are doing great digital work. So our last panel, for example, was one about the importance of the collaboration between creatives and media team and how they work together, and as it relates to digital media. Because a lot of times, if you're using a mobile ad, a 300 by 50, like a really small ad, and I'll get it back from creative, and it'll have so much stuff that you can't even read it. It's so small, and making sure they understand what does it really look like, and what are you trying to achieve, and how many clicks does it need to get to where you're going. So that was a great panel. We have a panel normally that has a creative person on it, a vendor partner, a media person, a brand person. So we like to get lots of different perspectives for everybody, for all the panels that we do. So our next panel is actually on June 1st, and it's at ZAC downtown on Olive in the Kransberg Arts Center. And we like to keep top of mind topics that interest our digital marketers. So our one on June 1st, that's sponsored by Spotify. And so the panel is going to be talking about streaming audio and all the different things that we know. So, I think I know about Spotify and streaming audio, but what's going to be great is as I'm doing the research for my questions as the panel moderator, I know I'm going to, find some questions that I hadn't thought about. And then when I ask the panelists, their answers are amazing, because you'll get one point of view from your brand marketer, one from your creative person, and you're like, wow, I didn't even think about that. And then our audience, the people that come to 314 Digital, which by the way, you don't have to join, you just show up. But our audience at 314 Digital, they're such smart marketers in St. Louis, and they ask some really good questions that, that I didn't even think of, and really challenge people's thinking. So all you have to do if you want to come to a panel is head over to 314digital.com to get on our mailing list, and we'll keep you up to date on all the panels and the topics. And there's also free breakfast, which is good. So we start about 8:30 and over by 10. And so, people can start their morning, tell their boss it's professional development, because it is, and come out learning something new. We also, 314 Digital, I'm the VP of Education, I should be talking about this. We sponsor a paid internship at Elasticity every year too. So, that's one of the things that, again, being an educational panel, we're trying to encourage people that are going to school. Hey, you don't have to go to Kansas City or Chicago or New York to have a great digital career. You can stay here and learn from the best. So
Yeah, I feel like the more sharing of ideas that we can do, especially as we have this amazing talent pool.
we do.
Really, just making sure that everybody is aware of that. Certainly of like the diverse ideas and opinions and stuff that we all have. Really bringing that all together sounds like it's great for the city. So I really appreciate that. And as you mentioned, I guess you had quite a few education panels and lessons you've learned. What are some of your favorite that you feel like you've walked away from 314 Digital with?
Yeah, so I'm not trying to be evasive on this question, but honestly, I love them all. And since our since our panels, have a variety of people that are, part of the panel, like I mentioned, a vendor, a creative, a media person, a brand, we really get to hear about all the new technology. And I think just in general, I always walk away learning about something new, a new way to target, a new way to put together a campaign, a new way to measure things. Um, the way brands are using platforms in different ways, and real life examples of how daring brand marketers are in stretching the limits to reach people. I think that's the thing that I love coming away with this. Like, wow, that was really cool, and I'm inspired to do something a little out of the box.
Yeah, it's great too when you're, I don't know, you get people constantly going to conferences in other cities. You get, people who are like, attending online conferences, but to be able to be there in person and in our city and get that kind of like, interesting information. Cool. I'll definitely, I'm gonna, it's on my list to go to the next one. So
June
absolutely.
1st.
Cool. Well, and I guess my last, question here, kind of wrapping, things up is like, as an active board member, somebody who's, very committed to, the growing level of talent here, what are you proud of within the community, and what are your kind of aspirations for, the kind of advertising marketing community in St. Louis?
Sure. So I'll tell you what. I was born, raised, and will die in St. Louis. I live in
Mhm.
Wildwood, but I think, everybody collectively refers to St. Louis as our hometown. And I'm so proud of this community. It's great to see so many companies that have their headquarters here. The amount of talent is just so, it's crazy. I mean, some of the smartest people I've ever worked with, live and work in St. Louis. So that's why I'm super excited to remind people that we have this group of dedicated marketers that are really making things happen. And I would love to kind of evolve our organization, our 314 Digital, to continue to offer educational examples, like helping people who want to get into digital marketing, maybe small business owners who aren't professional marketers, but say, you know what, here's how you set up your Google Analytics, and here's how you can read some basic reports and the things that you should be looking for, giving them some, just some help in educating people. I think, working for the American Association of Orthodontists, did you know that orthodontia started in St. Louis? It really
Really?
did. And yes, it did, in 1900. And the headquarters has been here ever since. So, having headquarters for big companies here who are dedicated, like American Association of Orthodontists, in having 100% digital, that's what we do. And being very forward thinking. It's really cool to have that. And so I just want to continue to grow people's excitement and their education and learning what they can do and how to reach people.
That's awesome. And being born and raised in St. Louis, I try to, every chance I get, tout how awesome our city is and how much talent and really how many amazing things are here. It's not just about the free museums. I get it. We have free museums,
Right.
free zoo. Yeah. I hear people say that all the time, and I'm like, yes, it's good, but it's about more than that. But I really do. I totally appreciate that, and I think the more that we can, kind of highlight and prop up, all the amazing things we have here, the better. And actually, maybe I'll take a second to give a shout out to, as you mentioned, getting, people into advertising and marketing is a huge, thing. Trying to get, more, sort of talent into the pool is great. And actually, one of my friends, Dan Paris, I guess, shout out to him and his organization Continuity. They help, expanding diversity in media production and, getting people into film and media production. That is really cool. And right here in St. Louis, trying to get more people in the talent pool there, and especially people, diverse people. And so, really, honestly, there's just so many things that I feel like is really important about this city, what we're doing, and where we're going too. And I look forward to that. And it's so great that you're a part of propping people up and expanding people's minds on all of this stuff. So is there anything else that you feel like you want to, kind of throw out there, or any other sort of shout outs that you feel like you want to put out there?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you to you for having me on. I really appreciate it. I guess I just want to remind people that, expand your horizons, keep thinking about, cool and different ways to reach people, and never stop learning.
Awesome. Jill, it's been a pleasure. I really appreciate you taking the time to, like kind of join us, tell us all about, the things that you've been doing. And definitely I cannot wait to, yeah, come to one of the talks at 314 Digital. I am certainly looking forward to hopefully interacting with you a lot more here in the near future and stuff as we talk about all sorts of digital things in the St. Louis area. But definitely, thank you so much for joining me, and I appreciate it. And yeah, hopefully we can do this again.
Thanks, Brent.
Yeah, this has been another episode of Mix and Matchbox. I have been here with Jill Gaynor, and I am Brent Feldman. Thank you very much. We'll be back with more content.